I don't know why. Yay. Hello, Melissa. We are
Hello.
live
We sure are on this hot, hot
and
day.
hot, not as hot as it's going to get.
That is
But the
true.
good news is it's nice and sunny and there are blue skies where we are today. I love it.
That's right. Hopefully that means I'll have a migraine-free day because I've been learning that when there's storms in the area, that triggers my headaches. So hopefully today is going
Wow.
to be a good day. Yes.
Yes, because yesterday was not.
Yes.
Um, So, before everyone gets here, because we know there's always a slight delay with the connection, I thought we could share and talk about some of the quotes that were already in the comments because they really, I picked out the ones that really resonated, and I'm wondering what your thoughts are.
Yeah.
So, I'll read the first one. Here we go. So, Bill Garland said, learning when and how much to say is critical for all of us. I
Yes.
think that sums up today.
Yes, it absolutely does. And I think that's going to become very relevant during our conversation.
Yes, absolutely. And then, and I think it's all visible. Some of it is cut off, so I'll read it because it's not all here. But our friend Charity said, if someone chooses to share with me, which happens a lot, I see it as a gift, even if I didn't ask for that gift. Clearly, they needed to unburden themselves, but it can be a quagmire if they end up sharing with the wrong person.
So I just love that Charity used the word quagmire. um, yeah, and obviously we're going to talk about that a lot today as well. It is a gift when someone puts that trust in you,
Sure,
but be really careful who you trust with that gift or with that information.
really, we're going to stick with that, and I'm going to remember that. So we have a couple more, and then I see people are starting to arrive.
Yes.
So Melissa Glick said, it's a careful balance to consider between sharing who you are and what makes you different and being too much. That those are three things that stand out for me too.
I like that. I think it's important to share who you are, but there are definitely certain things that I personally feel you only share with your close friends. You only share with trusted family members, right? And if we're going to be talking
Sure.
about the workplace today, not everything is appropriate workplace conversation. Even in a small group conversation, it's still the workplace.
Yes, I agree. We have to remember that. And maybe we have to remember that social media, especially LinkedIn,
Yes.
is our workplace as
Yes.
well.
Yes.
So I have one more that's worth reading, and I'm going to read it from my sheet because it's not all here. From Jihan. I'm all about tastefully sharing some of the personal as it humanizes us. And of course, goes back to that people buy from people, but
Yes.
to a point. She added that, but to a point. So it's something to think about. So I think I see some comments coming in. So I'm going to
Some of our
switch.
favorite people are here. I'm happy to see.
Yes. Yes. And we want to start saying hello to a few people and then we'll introduce ourselves. Good morning from Chicago. Yay. We're glad to see you. And we'll figure out who you are after we see the comments after the show. Holly.
Good morning,
Hi,
Holly.
Holly.
And good morning, Chicago user. I have a few thoughts in mind who that might be, but could be a couple of people.
And Lauren. Good
Lauren.
morning. It's so nice to see you. Hello,
Good morning.
Candace. We have a few more and then we're gonna get started. Hello, Lee. Oh, thank you for coming back.
And this could be our first international visitor if Lee is in Argentina. Usually she's in Argentina, so could be
Oh, yes. And
international.
she could tell us in the comments.
Yes.
Oh,
All right.
hello, Ari. So good to see you.
Good
And Lisa,
morning.
welcome. So I'm going to go back to our welcome. So thank you for being here, whether you're a new viewer, whether you've been here before, or if you're watching during the replay, which we do have. Most of our viewers are replay. We get hundreds in the replay versus a smaller group here where we can all chat together. So this is Let's Talk About It, Careers, Business, and LinkedIn, episode 21. TMI, too much info to share or not to share. And that's what we're going to talk about today. But before we get started, let's introduce ourselves. Melissa?
Thank you, Leslie. So, hello, everyone. I'm Melissa Cohen. I'm a personal branding and LinkedIn strategist. I help people to find their voice, build their brands, and build their business here on LinkedIn. Same as Leslie, I'm here in beautiful, most of the time, New York City. And I'm so excited to be here for this conversation. Leslie, you have to tell everyone what episode number we are because I know it's high and I can't even believe it. And I also want to say not only is Lee in Argentina, but I just learned that Lisa is in Trinidad and Tobago, which I did not know. So we're very
I was
international today.
Yay. Oh, thank you too. Welcome to our international community. We're thrilled you're here. We are episode 21.
Wow.
The months are passing quickly. So I'm Leslie Nydick, also known as the conflict strategist. And if you want to enhance your skills for managing conflict, even negotiation and communication, because they're all related, follow me for actionable tips on LinkedIn or your favorite social media, because I am in other places. Or you can sign up for my blog at theconflictstrategist.com. I love sharing what I know. That's why I'm here, because it really brings me joy. So let's see who else came and we can say hello, and then we'll get right into the topic. I'm going to go back to the comments because I see some new ones. So yes, Lisa's here from Trinidad and Tobago. We love that. In Argentina. And then we
Hi,
need
good
to say hello
morning.
to Reem. We're so glad you're here. And I always love your comments on our live. So we have a question for the viewers. So let me give you the full. What topic is off limits for sharing with your coworkers and or clients, in your opinion? Melissa, do you have a topic that comes to mind?
I have many. Look, I think the lines between the personal and the professional have been irreparably, if that's the right term, but sort of like permanently blurred, right? I don't think we're ever
Yes.
going to go back to a time when your personal life is here and your professional life is here and they never come together. With that
Yeah.
said, I definitely think that there are topics that really are not appropriate to share with coworkers, clients, colleagues. I would say family issues, right? Now, obviously, if you're dealing with a personal family situation that is going to impact your ability to be fully present at work, of course, that's something to discuss with your HR partners and, ultimately perhaps your boss. But I would say don't have these conversations just with everyone in the office, right? Don't be airing your dirty laundry about your family or about your finances, right? I would say truly personal issues and gossip, like malicious gossip in general, do not belong in the workplace.
Well, it's interesting you say that. And just so you know, and the audience knows, I do believe there's a delay in us seeing comments.
Yeah.
So some of this will respond to what you've been saying a little bit delayed. But I wanted to share a survey I found because you essentially covered almost all the topics mentioned here.
Oops.
Insurance quotes surveyed workers, and the number one topic, which you hadn't mentioned yet, but you mentioned personal, with 71% saying it's a no-no to discuss. It's three letters, SEX.
Okay, I didn't want to say it. You know me.
I mean, it's just so overwhelming that 71%. I
Yeah.
still want to know what the other 29% think is okay to talk about. And then, but very closely followed by 69% of the people also said talking about drug use.
Oh,
And
interesting.
that's got an interesting blurred line now because what was illegal when I was in like the corporate workplace is no longer illegal. So what, like, what, I'm not sure if they were referring to any drug use, but that was 69%.
Yeah.
And then 59%, this is one of the topics you just mentioned, do not gossip about coworkers.
Yes.
So 57% said that. I have never worked in a workplace where 57% did not gossip. Like
That's
the
true.
gossip was usually the majority of people. And there was one last one, and you mentioned finances. This I
Mhm.
find interesting. 42% said talking about your salary or income is off limits. And I've had interesting conversations with people. I find that it's regional, it can be cultural, whether to talk about salary or not, and age, generations,
Yes.
impact.
So I would say two things. One, I would say you're right. Workplace gossip about colleagues and coworkers is pretty common. I would also say it can be very damaging because the minute you say something to another person, it's out there and you can't take that back.
Yes,
And the person who you think is your friend in the office today might not be your friend in the office tomorrow. And so I think it's very unwise to share anything malicious with someone else in the office because it can come back to bite you. The salary conversation is an interesting one, right? Because there's a
yeah,
whole lot of talk now about pay transparency, and so I think it really depends how it's done, what your
yes,
company's policy on that is, right? Because it can be very useful, it can also be very damaging, right? What
yes,
happens if you find out that you are making substantially more or substantially less than someone else in the office? It can be
yes,
very helpful, but it can also really create a conflict and
definitely.
animosity between people.
Yes. And especially because, I mean, we're not meaning to speak all about salary, but salary, I know times where I got negotiated some additional benefits. So the dollar number didn't always match with
Right.
other people. I knew that. So there's so much more in the package, especially when there's stock options and other things that people get.
That's a great point.
So yeah, I do have a question for both of us, but I think a few more hellos are coming in, so I want
Yes.
to make sure we say hello.
Ashley.
Hello, Ashley. Hello, it's so good to see you.
Oh, and Jeannie's here.
And
Hi, Jeannie.
Jeannie, yes, comp. So she was agreeing that comp could be an issue. So, well, now we're really going to get into what is our criteria. So, I first want to share that there was a 2023 Forbes article titled How Much Personal Sharing is Too Much at Work? And that the author's three criteria were: one, don't discuss medical information unless you need accommodation. Number two, and this was interesting, eating together is not the only way to develop connection with coworkers. And that had to do with some people who had dietary issues. Like you don't have to feel pressured to eat with others. Three, the best personal information to share is fun and positive. So
Yeah.
with that being said, what criteria of that might resonate with you, but what is your criteria for sharing personal information with coworkers or anyone you're working with?
So I think you could tell from my reactions, the third one really resonated with me, right? I'm all about sharing positive, happy news, right? And I was actually having this conversation yesterday when I was doing a workshop with a group of women. And I said, don't be afraid to share your wins, right? It's not bragging, it's
Yeah,
celebratory. People like to celebrate good news, right? We have so much bad news every day. People are hungry for something to celebrate, right? It also is inspiring. If I see somebody doing something amazing, it might give me an idea of something that I can do or a goal that I can set for myself. So I really loved that last one. My criteria for what to share with coworkers, I mean, and this wouldn't necessarily be like the salary part of it, but like from a personal standpoint, would I want my grandma to see this? If my grandma saw this on, social media or
yeah,
wherever, would I be mortified? If the answer is yes, I
yeah.
probably shouldn't be sharing it. And is it something that I wouldn't say to the other person's face as far as gossip, right? If it's something that I would not want the other person to know I had said, I wouldn't share it. I wouldn't share it in the workplace because as soon as two
I
people
like it.
have a secret, it's not a secret anymore.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I, I echo everything you said. And I think for me, I start with like just a question to myself, like, what is the reason I'm sharing this? Now, if it is like for fun and positive to connect with someone, that could all be yes, but I have to think about like that. What is the reason? Don't just say it to say something to fill the silence. The second thing is to consider who I'm sharing it with and really think about like, is that the person I want to share it with? Or am I sharing it with too many? Um, just like on social media, which we'll get to in a minute, it's more like a megaphone. Am I sharing it with one person or am I sharing it with three people in a group? Just be aware of the choice. And then the most important point is to go back to the first criteria and to be sure of the why. Just know the why. I don't just like let it come out of your mouth. Be intentional. And I want to give an example about related to the Forbes article about the speaking about medical information, because this just happened with me and a client. I had a client who had asked their management for some accommodations with regard to private space at work. However, she didn't label it as accommodations. She just asked for private space at work, didn't really give a reason, didn't want to provide her medical information. She got a no. So, and that was her choice not to share the medical information. Of course, the reason why we were meeting is because of the conflict of being told no and really understanding their perspective because there are 10 people in that same position. One person asks for private space, they don't have enough for all 10 people to have private space. So it still had to be her choice if she wanted to reveal why she was asking. But the why in their minds was just asking for a luxury versus her why was an accommodation that she needed for medical reasons. So that becomes a personal choice, but know that if they don't have the information, they may not make the decision you want.
Yeah, I think that's a great example of when you might want to share something personal. And again, to your earlier point, who are you sharing that with?
Yes,
If you're sharing it
yes,
with your HR partners, that's a very different conversation than you're sharing it with, everybody in the middle of a meeting.
yes. So some of the comments are finally coming through. And maybe this will help us figure out who the LinkedIn user is. Love seeing you back together. Thank you.
Wow.
Whoever it is, we'll find out later. And we do have
Yes.
some more hellos, so some of it is coming through. Hello, Monica. Good morning. Good morning, Alan. We're glad to see you. And then we have people saying hello to everybody. We have agree. We're not sure what you're agreeing to. We'll have to go back in time to figure out what we were saying it. But thank you for agreeing with us. There's a lot more hellos going back and forth. You never know who's listening. Really good point.
Yes.
Lee says, I never talk about relationship problems, about friends, husband, or kids, unless I'm really close to someone, and but that's very rare.
Yeah.
That's a great point. Gossip is a no.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait to get into the comments because I know we're missing some of them now because I'm getting a message that not all of them are coming. So I'm really looking forward to seeing your comments and having the conversations later. Until then, we're going to talk about our next question, which is, and I know that let me ask the specific question to Melissa. So, how do you decide what if you will share something personal on social media, particularly LinkedIn? So we're going to talk about that. And Melissa, I'd love for you to tell us for yourself. Also, it would be really valuable to hear your perspective on how you advised your clients with how they decide what to share and what not to share.
So, social media, I think we could have a whole entire episode about what to share on social media. And obviously, different social media platforms are different. So, I would say very, very
Yes.
quickly, I know we want to focus on LinkedIn, like Instagram, for instance. You can have a private account, right? You can have your settings
Yes.
so that only people who you accept as followers can see the things that you share. So, that might give you a little bit of a different answer. I would still say exercise caution. But if
Yep.
we're going to talk about LinkedIn, look, LinkedIn is still a business and professional oriented platform. It has
Yes.
definitely changed in the last 10 plus years. I say that all the time. It's no longer the place that your resume goes to die. It is actually an interactive social media platform, but it is still very business oriented. It is still professional, and we are posting information and content under our real names, which I think is a great thing. That's one of the things I love most about LinkedIn is, we're not hiding behind a keyboard, we're not hiding behind a screen name. But remember that means that when you share something, your coworkers can see it, your boss can see it, your
Yes.
clients can see it. And I would argue that's a good thing as long as you're posting things that are professional, that are meaningful, and
Yes.
that are not, they're not polarizing. And never ever, I please don't post things attacking other people. When I see
Yeah.
that, I just cringe, right? You can disagree with someone, and that's fine. I say this all the time. I don't want to be in an echo chamber. I don't want people to just be
Right.
like saying, "Oh my God, you're so smart. Yes, I agree 100% all the time," because that's not real and that's not
Yeah.
reality. But if you disagree with someone, there's a way to do it and have a polite discourse as opposed to name calling and attacking. And, I see less of that on LinkedIn than I do on other platforms, but I
Yeah.
do see it. And so I would just
Yeah.
say, think think before you post, right? Would you say what you're about to say to somebody that you care about? And if not, you shouldn't say it that way to a stranger either.
Exactly. And to add to that, also think about, would you say that in person? Sometimes I think just being virtual, um, bolder, makes people bolder with
Yeah.
what they say. Would you say that in person? Would
Yeah,
you want other people to hear that? And one of my like starting criteria is like, it is virtual. This is an extension of my workplace and your workplace.
sure.
So I still use the same criteria that would in person, and then even remember more that when I'm saying something, whether it's a post or a comment, I have no idea who's going to hear it. When we're in the workplace and I'm saying it to someone or I'm in a meeting, I know exactly who will hear it. Maybe I'm not sure of who might overhear it. But here, I don't know who's overhearing it or hearing me. So that's where you have to really think. And also, it's words, written words, and they don't hear our tone. We try to add emojis to convey that, but we still have to be cautious. It's like we're yelling it out with a megaphone. So, and we don't know where it'll land. So we really have to think about, we don't know who's hearing us. So just be a little extra cautious. And it doesn't mean hold back. People want to know our personal side. They want, just like at work.
I actually advocate for sharing some personal parts of your life on LinkedIn
Yes.
because people, I say this all the time, people want to work with people that they like, know, and
Yeah.
trust, right?
Yes.
And you can't really build like, know, and trust if you don't let people into your world to a small degree. Now, again, I think there's limits, and those limits are different for each of us, right?
Yes.
I never talk about my family on LinkedIn. And that's a personal choice, right? There are other people who are very comfortable talking about their children on
Yes.
LinkedIn. And if you're comfortable with it, that's fine. And I think it's appropriate. There's nothing wrong with talking
Yes.
about your family on LinkedIn. Me personally, I don't do it. Um, I think it's great to talk about your vacations, right? I just took a vacation and I posted about it because I wanted to remind other people and myself that it's okay to take a break and that it's okay to be away and that you come back much more relaxed and recharged and motivated, right? So I think posting about personal things is perfectly acceptable on LinkedIn. Again, not everything needs to be said to everyone.
Exactly. And I love your point that each of us will make a different decision. And that's perfectly okay. That's what makes it all interesting, that we're all different. So some of the comments are coming through, so we can finally see some of them. So Ashley said, when people say, I will tell you something, please don't share. It's already been shared. Just good to keep in mind when sharing. Oh,
Yep.
I love that.
Yep.
And I want to say hello to Glenna. And she also wrote, I find that the more that I get to know people on LinkedIn professionally, the more that something personal seems okay. That being said, the sharing of something personal seems limited and not the really deep stuff. That is a great point. And it matters like where we're meeting each other. If we're meeting each other on a post in the comments, or if I'm meeting Glenna in a breakout room of a special gratitude event, which we were matched up,
Oh, that's fantastic.
we may share differently because we're there together and we already knew each other. So there's so many different like layers of
Yeah.
making the decision of what to share.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Oh, Jeannie agrees. There's no need to attack another person. It's so unprofessional. Exactly. You share with one. Everyone shares with one.
Yep.
I love that. Oh, Jane, I love that you brought that up. Pause is so important. Just like take that moment to think about, do I really want to do this? Or do I really want to post this? Or do I really want to put this comment out there?
Yep. That's right.
And welcome, Demetra. LinkedIn posts create your professional narrative if used appropriately. Absolutely. It's an unbelievable asset for all of us. if we use it well and be intentional. So I'm going to go through a few more comments and then we're done. Oh, Jane, she
No
agrees with
way.
Jane, and I'll get
Oh my
one more
gosh.
in from Reem. Positivity is contagious, so it's
Yes.
important to spread those good vibes. You know
Yes.
what? We're gonna end with that thought.
What could be better than that?
I know. So we're at that point, everybody.
Crazy.
So this monthly event is all about conversations between Melissa and I and with you. And of course, we're going to continue them in the comments. And I'm sure we're going to be surprised by comments since they weren't all
They're
coming
very
through.
slow
Uh,
today.
very. So let's keep it going. Don't forget to network with each other. And please
Yes.
mark your calendars for July 25th. And I'd love to have Melissa share closing words.
Oh my goodness. Thank you all for spending the fastest 30 minutes on LinkedIn with us today. I am seeing new comments come in, so know that Leslie and I will go back and respond to everyone. I did learn that LinkedIn user is our friend Susan. And yes, and thank you all so much for joining us, and hope to see you July 25th, but we'll see you on LinkedIn. And like Leslie said, please connect with each other, network with one another, and continue the conversation, because that's why we do this.
Bye, everyone.